England's top football division has spent over £2.1 billion on player transfers this summer, and the window is not even closed yet. That figure was recorded on August 17th. The window itself does not close until September 1st. £2.1 billion already outpaces 3 of the last 5 full summer windows combined into one single count. Only one summer in this league's history has ever spent more, and that record was set just 12 months earlier. This video breaks down where £2 billion actually went, which clubs are driving it, and whether the league is on track to break its own record for a second year running.
Start with the shape of a single transfer window, because it is shorter than most fans assume.
This window opened on June 15th and runs for 11 weeks, closing at 11 at night on September 1st.
Every completed deal inside that stretch counts toward the same seasonal total, no matter how early or late it happens.
Spending in the opening weeks tends to be steady. The final 10 days before deadline usually produce a sharp, late spike. That means the £2.1 billion figure recorded in mid-August is very likely a floor, not a ceiling. To understand whether that is unusual, line this summer up against every summer window for the last 6 years. 2020 came in at £1.32 billion, a quieter window shaped by pandemic-era caution. 2021 landed even lower at £1.13 billion, the smallest total of the 6 seasons compared here. 2022 climbed back to £1.94 billion as broadcast income and matchday revenue both recovered. 2023 pushed past that again, reaching roughly £2.4 billion and setting a new record at the time. 2024 actually dipped slightly, settling at about £1.98 billion, just under the prior year's mark. Then 2025 broke every prior ceiling at once, with clubs spending somewhere close to £3 billion gross in a single summer. That 2025 total was not a small jump. It landed roughly £600 million above the previous record from 2 years earlier. Net spend, meaning money out minus money recovered through sales, told an even sharper story that same summer. 2025's net spend reportedly hit about £1.2 billion, more than double the prior season's roughly £570 million. So this year's £2.1 billion tally, with the window still open, is being measured against the single biggest spending summer this league has ever recorded. Whether 2026 ends up higher or lower than that will not be known until the clock actually runs out on September 1st.
Now look at exactly which clubs are driving this year's total, because the spending is nowhere close to evenly spread.
One club alone has committed roughly £348 million so far this summer, more than any other side in the league. A second club sits well behind at around £228 million committed across its own summer signings. 2 more clubs are tied at roughly £151 million apiece, each rebuilding different parts of their squad. Add those 4 totals together, and just 4 clubs account for a very large share of the league's entire gross outlay. That concentration is not new. It is actually a long-running pattern in how this particular division spends its money. The 6 clubs with the biggest commercial revenue in the league are commonly grouped together under one informal label by analysts and pundits. This summer, spending by that top group on clubs outside their own circle reached roughly £546 million. That is slightly below last summer's record figure for the same category, which touched roughly £647 million. Even a slight pullback from a record still leaves this year's cross-tier spending among the highest ever logged in a single window. Money moving from the wealthiest clubs down into the rest of the league is one of the clearest financial engines behind the whole division. But a second, quieter engine is running at the same time, and it barely touches any club outside the league at all. Roughly £785 million of this summer's total came from clubs buying directly from other clubs in the same league. That is close to 1/3 of every pound spent this summer, simply moving sideways within the division rather than leaving it. A player sold from one mid-table side to another still counts fully toward the league's gross spending total, even though no money left the league at all. That distinction matters because a headline gross figure and the amount of genuinely new money entering the league are 2 very different numbers. It also explains why one club's spending spree and another club's income can both spike inside the exact same transfer window. Look at net figures rather than gross spending, and the picture of who actually gained or lost money this summer flips almost completely. The club with the single biggest gross outlay this summer also carries the largest negative net balance in the entire league at roughly £209 million. Spending the most and losing the most on paper are not contradictions. They are simply 2 sides of the same aggressive summer. On the opposite end, one club has actually turned a profit this summer, banking roughly £226 million more than it has spent. That single club's net income this summer is large enough on its own to roughly cover two of the league's mid-sized squads combined. Selling clubs like that rarely make transfer deadline headlines the way big money buyers do, even though their books often look healthier by the end of the window. Step outside this one league entirely, and the scale of its spending looks even more unusual by comparison. Italy's top division has spent roughly £780 million of its own this same summer, the highest total among the other four major European leagues. Spain's top division sits at around £515 million, well below both England and Italy for the same window. Germany's top division has spent close to £505 million, a broadly similar figure to Spain's total this summer. France's top division comes in lowest among the five, at roughly £412 million committed so far. Add every one of those four leagues together, and their combined total still lands in almost exactly the same range as England's single division alone. One domestic league matching the combined spending power of its four closest rivals is not a one-off. It has been the pattern for several summers running now. Broadcast revenue is the biggest single reason why. This league's domestic and international television deals dwarf anything the other four currently command. More broadcast money flowing in every single season gives these clubs a structurally larger transfer budget than direct rivals across the rest of the continent.
That gap in broadcast income has been widening steadily for close to a decade, and this summer's spending totals are simply the latest visible symptom of it.
Zoom back in on the record 2025 window specifically because it did not just raise spending, it reshaped the tiers below it too. England's second-tier division, one level below the top flight, also increased its own gross spending that same summer, reaching roughly £240 million. That was an increase of about £95 million over the second tier's own prior season total. Clubs relegated out of the top flight that year also received a sharp jump in transfer income from selling players onward, totaling roughly £225 million. That relegation-related income figure was up about 123% from the year before it, according to financial analysts tracking the league. Money spent at the very top of the pyramid does not stay contained there. It visibly presses down through every division underneath it. A club relegated with a well-stocked, valuable squad can effectively fund an entire promotion push using transfer fees banked on the way down. That dynamic makes the top flight spending totals relevant even to fans who follow clubs several divisions away from it. So why does this particular summer keep climbing higher year after year, with only the occasional small dip along the way? Broadcast income is the largest single driver, growing steadily through new domestic deals and rapidly expanding international television and streaming rights. A newly promoted club now arrives in the top flight with broadcast income alone larger than some established clubs' entire annual budgets from a decade earlier. That baseline increase lifts spending power across every single club in the division, not only the 4 or 5 wealthiest names at the very top. A second driver is simple competitive pressure. Falling behind a direct rival in one transfer window makes catching up the following summer more expensive, not less. Clubs chasing European qualification spots and clubs trying to avoid relegation both treat the summer window as their single biggest lever for changing outcomes. A third driver is the intra-league recycling already described earlier. Nearly a third of all spending simply moves sideways, inflating the gross total without adding new outside money. None of those three drivers on their own fully explains a jump this large. Together, compounding across several summers in a row, they clearly do. There is also a regulatory backdrop shaping exactly how and when this money gets spent, not just how much of it exists. Financial sustainability rules limit how much clubs can lose relative to revenue over a rolling multi-year period, not how much they can spend in any single summer. That structure rewards clubs who can pair heavy spending with strong revenue growth, and it can restrict clubs whose income has not kept pace. It also helps explain why so much spending clusters among a small handful of already dominant, commercially largest clubs rather than spreading evenly. Clubs operating closer to their financial limits often wait until the final days of the window, hoping a sale funds an incoming signing on the same day. That is part of why deadline day itself, September 1st this year, so reliably produces its own separate spike, layered on top of everything already spent. Put the full picture together, and this summer is already one of the biggest transfer windows this league has ever recorded, with time still left on the clock. £2.1 billion gross, roughly a third of it recycled between league rivals, and 4 clubs responsible for a large share of the rest. One club carrying the league's largest net loss on paper, and one club banking the league's largest net gain in the exact same window. A single domestic league still outspending the other 4 biggest leagues in Europe combined for what is now several summers running. And a record set just 12 months ago, at roughly £3 billion gross, that this year's total is still chasing with the deadline not yet here. Whether 2026 actually beats that record now comes down to 9 days. Most fans will barely notice happening in real time. Watch what happens between now and September 1st. Deadline day alone has historically added hundreds of millions of pounds in a matter of hours. Compound World covers the events, decisions, and power structures that shape the world economics, finance, sports, and beyond. Grounded in real data. No hot takes. No manufactured outrage.